The wind howled through the narrow alleys of Ravenshollow, a town where secrets clung to the walls like ivy. The night was thick with anticipation, the kind that made the hairs on your neck stand on end. Streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced menacingly on the cobblestone streets. In the heart of this eerie town stood a modest house, its windows darkened, its walls bearing the weight of untold stories. Inside, Augustus Reed sat in his dimly lit study, the glow of a single lamp illuminating the myriad of photographs and documents spread across his desk. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed the evidence, each piece a testament to the horrors that had unfolded in the shadows. A soft knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. He rose slowly, his joints protesting with each movement. Opening the door, he found a young man, Lucien Vega, standing there with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, Mr. Reed," Lucien drawled, his tone dripping with feigned politeness. "Lucien," Augustus replied, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in his chest. They exchanged pleasantries, but beneath the surface, a dangerous game was unfolding. Lucien's eyes darted around the room, taking in the meticulously organized chaos. He had no idea that every word, every glance, was being recorded. As the conversation continued, Augustus subtly guided Lucien towards the living room, where a hidden camera captured every detail. The tension in the room was palpable, each word laced with double meanings and hidden threats. Suddenly, Lucien's demeanor shifted. "You know, old man, people like you should know their place." Augustus's eyes narrowed, but he remained calm. "And what place is that, Lucien?" Lucien leaned in, his voice a whisper. 6 feet under." The words hung in the air, heavy with menace. But Augustus didn't flinch. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pressed a button on a small device. A red light blinked to life, signaling that the recording had begun. Outside, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Lucien's eyes widened in realization, but it was too late. The door burst open, and federal agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. "Lucien Vega, you're under arrest," one agent announced, cuffing the stunned young man. As Lucien was led away, Augustus stood tall, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and sorrow. The trap had been set, and the predator had been caught. But this was just the beginning. If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. The cameras kept flashing, but Augustus didn't flinch. Lucien Vega's hands were cuffed, but his eyes burned with something deeper than rage. Confusion. Fear. Augustus had seen that look before, back in Saigon, in men who thought they understood control, until they didn't. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some wept. Others stood silent, unsure what they'd just witnessed. But Augustus didn't hear them. His gaze stayed fixed on Lucien. Not in triumph, not in vengeance, but in calm calculation. The plan had worked. But something in Lucien's eyes, something didn't add up. He turned to Special Agent Orozco. "Take him alive," Augustus said, "and keep him talking." Orozco nodded once. Already in motion. The crowd parted as the agents escorted Lucien to the waiting van. He didn't resist. Not anymore. But as they passed Augustus, Lucien stopped walking. He leaned in, just enough for Augustus to hear. "You think I'm the worst of it?" he whispered. "You haven't even touched the real rot." Then he smiled. Not a grin. Not mockery. Something colder. Something Augustus hadn't seen since his interrogation days. "I was just the bait too, old man." The door slammed shut. The van pulled away. And Augustus Reed felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Dread. 3 days later, the case had gone national. News outlets ran headlines like, "Veteran turns tables on hate ring," "Elder hero exposes underground attack network," and "One man's fight for dignity sparks national reckoning." But Augustus didn't celebrate. Not yet. Lucien Vega was in federal custody. The footage from the hidden camera had already gone viral. Senators were tweeting support. Survivors were stepping forward. Civil rights groups were organizing. But in a small room inside the Ravenshollow Municipal Complex, Augustus stared at a corkboard covered in photos. Lucien wasn't alone. The footage had helped identify 7 others, men and women, mid-20s to 40s, caught on surveillance tapes laughing as they shoved or humiliated elderly victims. Most had already disappeared. All but one, a woman named Danica Cross. She ran a fitness studio 30 miles outside town. A public face. Clean record. Too clean. Augustus circled her photo with red ink. He turned to Evelyn. "I want a background sweep." Military ties. Law enforcement history. See if she's got anything sealed. His daughter frowned. You think she's more than just a participant? Augustus didn't blink. She's smiling in every photo. Not like a follower. Like a producer. Evelyn nodded. She didn't question him anymore. Not after what he'd pulled off. That night, Augustus couldn't sleep. He sat in his kitchen, watching the old black and white TV. An old war movie flickered. Something about it felt hollow now. The knock came at 3:17 a.m. 3 taps. A pause. 2 more. Military pattern. Augustus reached for the gun taped beneath the table. He opened the door slowly. It was Special Agent Orozco. Her face was pale. "We've got a problem," she said. She handed him a manila envelope. Lucien tried to hang himself. Augustus's stomach dropped. Did he succeed? No. But before he passed out, he said something else. He asked if we'd found the ledger. Augustus opened the envelope. Inside was a scan of a handwritten note. Rambling. Disjointed. But 4 words were circled in red. Merrick. Cross. Elias. Ledger. Augustus nearly dropped the page. Elias? His hands trembled. Orozco noticed. You know the name? He nodded slowly. Elias Merrick trained me to fly. And Cross? She asked. Augustus didn't speak. He walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out an old photo album. Page by page he flipped. Past medals. Past base photos. Then he stopped. There, in a photo from 1965, was Elias Merrick. Standing beside him was a young woman. Blonde. Sharp jawline. Unmistakable. Danica Cross. Impossible, Orozco whispered. She'd be in her 70s now. She is, Augustus said. Unless it wasn't her. Unless it was her daughter. Or granddaughter. Or someone trained in the same ideology. He snapped the album shut. I need to see Lucien. They reached the secure facility at dawn. Lucien was heavily sedated, but conscious. Augustus stood over him. I don't care how long it takes, he said. You're going to tell me everything about the ledger. Lucien blinked, then smiled through bloodied lips. It's buried. Where? In the place where ghosts breathe. Augustus narrowed his eyes. Speak plain. Lucien coughed. Elias didn't just train pilots. He kept records, blackmail files, operative logs, experiments, Project Manticore. All of it. You think this started with me? With Danica? Lucien laughed, raw and broken. It started with men like your mentor. Augustus's blood ran cold. Project Manticore. He hadn't heard that name in 40 years. It was rumored during the Cold War. A covert psych operations program involving manipulation, behavior conditioning, and civilian targeting for psychological warfare tests. It had been shut down, or so he thought. Where's the ledger? He asked again. Lucien's eyes rolled back. Too much morphine. Too little time. The next morning, Augustus stood outside a crumbling building on the edge of Ravenshollow. It had once been a VA supply depot. Shut down in the 1980s. Scheduled for demolition next spring. But to Augustus, it was familiar. Elias used to take him there. Said it was where files went to die. He pried open the rusted gate. Inside, the air smelled of mold and oil. He searched for hours. Then he saw it. A broken locker marked Merrick. He forced it open. Inside was a metal lockbox. He carried it into the light. Inside were hundreds of documents. Photos. Tapes. Files marked with dates, names, locations. And one black leather-bound book. On the first page, scrawled in red ink, The Invisible Front. He read the first entry, and his world changed. The book detailed surveillance operations targeting elderly black veterans, testing emotional resilience through staged attacks, community isolation, and misinformation. It wasn't just cruelty. It had been a controlled program. Augustus stumbled back, heart pounding. Lucien hadn't been lying. The hate crimes? The game? They were echoes of something older. Institutional. Forgotten. Repackaged. And someone was still running it. That night, he met with Evelyn. He laid the ledger on the table. We thought we were exposing a ring of criminals, he said. But we were just scratching the surface. Evelyn read one page. Then another. Her face drained of color. This goes up the ladder. She flipped to a tab marked Current Assets. Danica Cross. Status, Handler. 3 names were listed under her. Lucien Vega. Nathan Bryce. And a code name. Osprey. No photo. No alias. Just a file number. Osprey's the one still running this, Evelyn said. Augustus looked out the window. They thought if they buried it long enough, no one would care. But they didn't count on the ghosts remembering. 2 days later, during a town hall organized to honor Augustus, someone slipped a sealed envelope into his coat pocket. No name, no return address. Inside was a single page. Typed. Block letters. You're digging where you shouldn't. Stop now. Before you find Osprey. The Air Force never retires its real assets. Augustus folded the letter. The press surrounded him. Cameras ready. He stepped to the microphone. But instead of his speech, he looked directly into the lens. If anyone out there knows what Project Manticore really did, he said, voice steady, I'm still here. And I'm not done. The room fell silent. Some clapped. Others looked confused. But somewhere in the shadows, a figure in a gray coat stepped out. They made a call. It's him, the voice said. He has the ledger. He's opening doors we sealed decades ago. A pause. Then the response. Activate Osprey. That night, Augustus Reed returned home. The lock on his front door was scratched. Inside, nothing was taken. Except one thing. The photo of him and Elias Merrick. It was gone. And on the table, in its place, a feather. Gray. Sharp. Marked with a code. 17. And under it, a post-it note in elegant handwriting. We trained you well, Augustus. But not well enough to survive what's coming. If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. Rain pelted the roof of the Ravenshollow Veterans Center like machine gun fire. Inside, the flickering overhead lights cast long shadows across the main corridor. Augustus Reed stood motionless in front of the sealed archive door. The biometric scanner blinked red. Beside him, Agent Navarro held up a decrypted clearance file, stamped with a seal neither had seen in decades. Confirming access, Navarro whispered, jaw tight. The door clicked. It hissed open with a mechanical groan, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. The air shifted. Cold. Metallic. Old. As if the stairwell hadn't been opened in years. Augustus said nothing. He simply descended, one slow step at a time. The deeper they went, the more the past returned. Faint echoes of orders barked in flight hangars. The roar of jet engines. Paper dossiers stamped classified. And the unmistakable sound of betrayal. At the bottom, a rusted vault door bore an inscription scorched by time. Manticore. The word alone was enough to make Navarro pause. This is where it began, Augustus murmured. Navarro pressed his palm to the scanner. A click. Then silence. Then the vault creaked open. Inside, rows of file cabinets. Wall-mounted monitors frozen on ancient schematics. Old reels. Scattered photos, some so faded the faces were no longer visible. But Augustus knew them. Every one of them. They were the names on the old roster. Men who had vanished. Declared MIA. Traitors. Some had just disappeared without a trace. Augustus reached for a folder labeled Unit S-17, Final Protocol. His hands trembled as he opened it. And there it was. The first picture, Harlan Fox, Lucien's father. The second, a name he hadn't heard in half a century, Reuben Thorne. A colonel turned ghost. Allegedly dead in 1981. But the last photo was the one that stole Augustus's breath. Dr. Leonora Casson, Ravenshollow's mayor. Navarro stepped closer. She was part of this? No, Augustus whispered. She ran it. Navarro's face drained of color. From behind them, a quiet click echoed. A pistol being cocked. I was hoping you'd get this far, a voice said, sharp, composed. Augustus and Navarro turned slowly. Mayor Leonora Casson stood in the stairwell, soaked from the rain. Her heels clicked on the concrete as she stepped into the vault. I always admired your stubbornness, Reed. Even when we thought you were just the frail old soldier muttering in the corner. Augustus straightened. How long have you known? Since the moment Lucien failed to neutralize you, she said. He wasn't supposed to just scare you. He was supposed to erase you. Navarro moved subtly, shifting his weight. Don't, Casson warned, waving the gun. You used him, Augustus said. I used everyone, she replied. Manticore was never about defense. It was always about control, behavioral conditioning, covert manipulations, targeted social chaos. The elderly were just the easiest test group, isolated, ignored, forgotten. Perfect guinea pigs. Why bring it here? Augustus asked. Casson's eyes gleamed. Because no one would believe it. A sleepy town. A decorated veteran whispering conspiracy. It was the perfect cover. But you made one mistake, Augustus said. Oh, you taught me how to listen. Cassin's face twitched. From the corridor behind her, a second figure stepped into view. Lucien Vega. Disarmed. Injured. But standing. I heard everything, he said. Cassin froze. You lied to me, Lucien said, voice raw. You said my father was killed by the system. That he was a traitor. But he was part of your experiment. He volunteered, she snapped. He was coerced. Augustus thundered. Lucien looked at Augustus. Then at the vault. Then back at the mayor. You used me. Just like you used my father. In one quick motion he lunged. The gun went off. The shot rang through the vault. Cassin collapsed, disarmed, not dead. Lucien stood over her, bleeding from a graze along his side. Navarro moved quickly, restraining her. Augustus exhaled, slow, deliberate. He stepped over to a nearby console and flipped a switch. Old monitors buzzed to life. Surveillance log. Location pings. Experimental footage. Names. Locations. Files marked still active. Broadcasting now, Navarro said, slotting in a portable transmitter. Federal line secure. Upstairs, the entire center went into lockdown. But it was too late to stop what had begun. Within hours, news agencies across the country aired fragments of the footage. Veterans in Mississippi. Seniors in Detroit. Isolated tribal elders in New Mexico. All had been targets of manipulated incidents, staged break-ins, forced panic attacks, induced episodes of paranoia. And all of them tied to Project Manticore. Cassin was transported to a black site. But it didn't end there. 2 weeks later, in a closed hearing, Augustus sat before a Senate subcommittee, flanked by Navarro and Lucien, now cleared and cooperating. The system didn't fail, Augustus told the chamber. It operated exactly as it was designed, to erase the inconvenient, to weaponize silence. We are not looking at a rogue experiment. We are looking at an intentional structure. When the hearings concluded, the nation was reeling. But something else had shifted. Suddenly, silence had a name. In Ravenshollow, construction resumed at the center. But this time, new wings were added, archive rooms, investigative halls, even a courtroom simulation space for veterans and survivors to testify and train. Lucien worked on the front lines, now deeply embedded in recovery outreach. Navarro left the bureau, choosing instead to remain in Ravenshollow as head of internal security. And Augustus? He took the room above the archive vault. One evening, alone, he opened the last envelope from the Manticore files. Inside was a letter, dated 1983, handwritten, signed by Captain Elias Vega. To whoever finds this, I tried to stop it. They buried me first in paper, then in silence. But I believe in one thing more than country, more than command. That one day one man will do what's right, not because he was told to, but because he saw what silence costs. Augustus folded the letter slowly. He placed it in a glass case beneath a plaque. One man is enough. The next morning, construction crews lifted the final stone at the entrance. The Augustus Reed Center for Restorative Truth. As they sealed it into place, Navarro approached with a USB drive. Final transmission, he said. We traced the funding. Augustus took it, paused, slid it into the terminal. Dozens of bank codes flooded the screen. Shell corporations, private contractors. One name repeated over and over. Blackridge Holdings. Augustus leaned forward. Because he recognized it. It was the same name written on a business card given to him 52 years ago. At a gas station. By a man in a gray suit with no name. He turned to Navarro. We're not done. A silence fell between them. Then Navarro nodded. And from the speakers in the main hall, a voice played on loop, the voice of Elias Vega. If they taught us anything, it's that the shadows never sleep. And neither do we.